Hello. Today I'm going to talk about the sheep and the goats that is found in Matthew 25. Let me just read a little excerpt. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. Now, after this, he goes into why the sheep are on the right and are blessed and are going to inherit the kingdom. He goes through a list of the things that they've done. For instance, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. And he goes through this list of things that they've done. Then they ask him, when did we do these things for you? And he tells them, as you've done this for the least of these, least of my brethren, you've done it to me. And then he talks to those on his left, the goats. And he goes through the same list, but it's the reverse. They haven't done those things. When he was hungry, he did not get something to eat, or thirsty, he did not get something to drink. Or when he was sick, they didn't visit him. And again, the goats, those on his left, ask, when did we not do this? And he says it's the same response. As you did not do these things to the least of my brothers, you did not do them to me. And this separation is quite stark, because he starts out when he talks to the goats and he says, depart from me, you cursed, into eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. So this is very significant separation. Now, something you probably should understand is, with flocks, the sheep and the goats might be mixed together. But there also is really good reasons why you would separate them. Now, so that's why he's given this example. Just as a shepherd might separate the sheep from the goats. Now, it's real important to understand and go back and look at the context. Because in Matthew 25, there's 3 different parables. Not just the sheep and the goats, which is talking about a final judgment or final separation that Jesus will do. It talks first in Matthew 25 about the parable of the 10 virgins. Then it talks about the parable of the talents. And then it talks about the final judgment, or the sheep and the goats. And what I would tell you is, all 3 of these are related. They're all talking about the same thing. For instance, when it talks about the parable of the virgins, you have the 10 wise virgins and the 10 foolish. And if you read to the end, I'm not going to read it, but when you read to the end, the 5 foolish don't have oil for their lamps, and the bridegroom has come, which of course refers to Jesus coming, and they don't have oil for their lamps. Listen to how he responds to the 5 foolish virgins. Because the door has been shut and they can't get in. Okay? And they say, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered, truly I say to you, I do not know you. He doesn't know the 5 foolish virgins. Now, many people, when they read these parables, particularly this first one, the parable of the virgins, they'll say, we're talking about believers and non-believers, which technically is true. Then there's other people who say, well, it's all believers. And the reason I think there's this dichotomy and people aren't sure is because really in all 3 of these parables, it's talking about the same thing. Just like the sheep and the goats who are all in one herd and then they're separated. It's talking about, in all 3 of these, it's talking about servants of God. Some are true and some aren't. Some know God and some don't. And in the final judgment, Jesus is going to separate those. In other words, there's people that go to church who may know God, know about God, but don't actually know him. That would be the 5 foolish virgins who don't actually know God. They don't actually have the oil, the Holy Spirit, in their lamp. They don't actually know God. So when Jesus comes back and we have the final judgment, he's going to separate the wise from the foolish. He's going to separate the sheep, those who truly know him and love him and follow his commands, and the goats, those who may have professed to know Christ but really don't know him. Now, this is a really important warning. So all 3 of these, I'm not going to talk about the talents, but it's the same thing. It's talking about the same thing. Basically, you have people that profess to know God, but they don't actually know Him, and they're cast out. And this is an important warning for us to realize. Just because we go to church either every week or once a year doesn't mean we truly know God. And God's given us this warning. If we really want to enter into eternal happiness, into the eternal paradise, into heaven, and be with Him forever, we have to know Him. We have to have a personal relationship and walk with Him as He is our shepherd and we the sheep. Not everyone is going to heed this warning. Not everyone who calls God Lord, Lord actually knows Him. So it's very important to heed the warning, because at the final judgment, Jesus is going to separate the sheep from the goats. Even if we can't tell the difference, God can.